He's good to go for three. Welcome back to Overtime here on WOTM. Our weekly Wednesday installment of Who's Better this week now goes to the baseball field. We've talked football for a long time, quarterbacks, running backs, everything in between. And now we're going on the baseball diamond, and our first baseball topic is who's better between some infielders. We'll go with the Braves' favorite and Chipper Jones, and a guy that dominated in the 70s, 80s, and also a tad bit into the 90s, and George Brett. When I first saw this, I thought I knew who was better, and then now after you broke down some numbers, I'm not so sure. We'll take a look at some highlights of both these guys, and then we'll break down the numbers here in just a little bit. But what were some of your takeaways as you talked about these two Hall of Famers?
Okay, there's a disclaimer here, okay? I was never a fan of Chipper Jones because he named his son Shea after Shea Stadium because he just killed the Mets, and Chipper has broken my heart many times.
Right.
George Brett was my favorite baseball player ever. So I think that if we had to look at this and say, which one is Mark going to pick, I'd be leaning one way right off the bat.
Right.
So let's see how fair I could be here, all right? George Brett, to me, was the most clutch player in baseball history. He had home runs in the postseason that were legendary. Off of Goose Gossage to send the Royals to the World Series in 1980, off of Grant Jackson to tie Game 5 of the 76 World LCS, which led to the Chris Chambliss walk-off home run, one of the most legendary moments in Yankee Stadium history to put the Yankees in the World Series. And then we have here Brett hitting a home run off of Dickie Knowles in the World Series. 10 postseason home runs for Brett, and they were all big.
Right.
I remember in 1985 in the ALCS against Doyle Alexander in Game 3. The Royals were down 2-0. Brett went 4 for 5 with 4 runs scored, 5 RBIs and 2 home runs. Poor Doyle Alexander. Every time he pitched to Brett that postseason, Brett hit a home run off him. Wind up hitting 3 off him to the point where the announcers on NBC were like, why are they pitching to him? But Brett was like that. The Yankee fans were scared to death of him. In 1978, Game 3 of the League Championship Series, hitting 3 home runs off of Catfish Hunter. One of a handful of guys to hit 3 home runs in a postseason game. So I think that's where Brett is in the postseason. Now, we know Chipper Jones' postseason numbers are legendary because he played in so many. The difference, 93 to 43 as far as games played. But Brett's got a higher batting average, and he's, if you go by a per average, was better than Chipper in the postseason. But Chipper was clutch. Let's get that right off the bat. Chipper was a very clutch ball player. When you look at their career numbers, Brett has played in probably about 150, 160 more games. Had about 200 more at bats than Chipper Jones did. So I think that there was a lot of things you could look at and say, well, Brett played more, and he still didn't put up as much overall numbers as Chipper did. So yeah, games played, we're talking Brett had like 3,000 and Chipper had maybe 2,800 or however the numbers broke out. But there wasn't that much of a difference as far as overall games played. But there was enough of a difference to where you look at and say, well, Brett's numbers should have been better, being that he played more games. He had, I think, over 300-400 more plate appearances than Chipper Jones did. So that's a big difference. And Chipper had more home runs, more RBIs, higher OPS, and the K to walk differential. Both of those guys are positive, so that means they walked more than they struck out, which I think was huge for these guys, because now guys strike out all the time. I expected that number to be a little bit bigger for Brett than it was for Chipper, but just to give you an idea how great Chipper Jones was. The one difference here, Brett 3,000 hit club, Chipper didn't. Brett played 21 years, Chipper played 20. And the batting average is very close. I didn't expect it to be that close. 305 to 303. So when you look at those things, then the overall, if you can put the overall postseason numbers up there, you get to see what I'm talking about. Chipper with the huge advantage in games played. Brett 337 batting average, one of the highest in postseason play. 56 hits in only 43 games right there. 10 homers, 30 runs. And you look at the OPS a lot higher. That's what we really look at by when we're averaging out. Brett, average-wise, was better than Chipper in the postseason. And if you look at their individual awards there, they're both Hall of Famers. They both won one MVP. Brett, MVP of the 85 LCS. Chipper never had a postseason MVP. Brett, the only player in Major League Baseball history to have a batting title, win a batting title in 3 different decades.
That's insane.
That is absolutely insane.
Right.
1976, 1980, 1990. Guys don't play 3 different decades. Brett won a batting title in three different decades. 13 All-Star games for Brett, to only 8 for Chipper. And so I think those are where we got to make the choice from. As much as it breaks my heart, I would have to say Chipper's better.
Exactly.
Okay, and I love George Brett with all my heart.
Right.
Okay, and I'm not really a Chipper fan. I have another Chipper Jones story I got to share with you another time. But just shows you how great Chipper Jones was, because George Brett was one of my heroes and a guy that came up clutch in just about every situation. But I think when you look at that, Chipper didn't play in as many games and his production was better, even though they played in a little better era. You know, personally, if I had to choose on a team,
right,
I would take George Brett.
Yes.
But I think if we're asking me which one had a better career,
right, I'd
have to give the edge to Chipper overall, because you just also look at the impact he had. The Braves made the postseason many more times than the Royals did. They were always a key member of the National League as far as who was going to win that year. So I, as much as it hurts me, I'd have to say Chipper was better.
It's an excellent breakdown, number one, because I wasn't around to watch George Brett and enjoy him play during his career. I knew about the Pine Tar incident, and I knew he's in the 3,000 club, and that's about all I knew about him. I didn't know about the 3 batting titles in 3 different decades. Knew he was a great hitter, obviously. Knew he was a Hall of Famer, and the MVP matchup. And I think it's one of those things where I think, off the top of my head, at first said, of course, Chipper Jones, but I think that was a bias because of that he's the guy that I grew up with. Mm-hmm. However, going back and kind of breaking down George Brett's career, very, very similar. I think you hit a good point. I think if you're starting a team right now, I think I like the edge that Brett brings. Yeah. But I think Chipper, obviously, to me, as far as at the plate and in the field, I think he's obviously the better player by a very slim margin.
By a very slim margin. One last thing I'll say about Brett. Before the Pine Tar incident, he was known for one thing, which was getting hemorrhoids in the 1980 World Series, where he missed a couple games. And also, if you want a funny story, okay, there's an hysterical story of Brett on YouTube talking about when he went to Las Vegas, how he had a little unfortunate incident with some crab legs he ate.
Right.
Absolutely hysterical. The story he's telling to one of his teammates on YouTube. I saw it the other day. Because of that honesty, it kind of made me even more of my hero. But I think that's a real funny segment. So, that game where he went absolutely ballistic in a Pine Tar, you got to see it. July 24th, 1983. I was watching the game when it happened in Yankee Stadium. Yep.
Unbelievable. And once again, another great breakdown. And we've done several of these, and you find ways to come up with creative stories, creative comparisons, and kind of make you think a little bit beyond the game. Certainly appreciate it once more. Chipper Jones versus George Brett. And I think some people might have a little, may have augmented their decision making just a little bit, looking at the numbers as they broke it all down. Thanks once again, Mark, for that. Well, coming up next here on Overtime, we'll have a news and notes section here. Some smaller storylines that have taken place over the course of yesterday and today. We'll break them down coming up next.